Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. What a sad state of affairs we've seen this week from the Liberals. Here we are engaging in what should be a serious conversation about a pressing issue, only to hear the members opposite say, "But what about them? They did something worse." The old political tactic of whataboutism, the ultimate escape hatch for avoiding accountability. It's become the go-to response by the Liberals during the course of this debate. Let's step back and look at the big picture. A government gets caught red-handed in a scandal. It's clear, undeniable, and the public deserves an explanation. What happens next? Well, we don't get an apology or even a hint of responsibility. Instead, we get a well-rehearsed, "But what about the other party?" They try to change the subject to someone else's wrongdoing, as if two wrongs somehow make a right. Whataboutism is the political equivalent of the schoolyard comeback, "I know you are, but what am I?" How childish, Madam Speaker. This attitude of avoiding the tough questions by pointing fingers elsewhere is nothing new. It's been happening for years across all political spectrums. But under this Liberal government, it seems to have sunk to a new low, a strategy deployed to muddy the waters and confuse the public. Why talk about real problems when you can play the blame game instead? Why address policy failures when you can just drag your opponents into the mud with you? Time and time again, when faced with tough questions, the Liberal government shifts the goalposts, stonewalls, or when absolutely cornered, throws up their hands and gives vague, non-committal responses. They've forgotten they serve the Canadian people, not their own political interests. What makes this evasion all the more ridiculous is the government's attempts to put a green spin on it. Sure, they grossly mismanaged public funds to shovel money to their friends. Sure, they were involved in corruption, but at least it was green corruption. This seems to be their argument. At least it was some nice environmentalist who got away with the cash. The absurdity of this argument is lost on no one, yet somehow the Liberals seem to believe that this passes as an acceptable response. And yet, despite how laughable and immature the Liberals' whataboutism is, they are unrelenting in their use of it. We have heard Liberal speaker after Liberal speaker stand up this week and waste the House's time with history lessons and other distractions that have nothing to do with the issue we are dealing with here and now. Their response has turned this debate into a competition of who did worse, rather than who can do better. This attitude is not just disappointing, it's dangerous. It promotes a culture of deflection where no one is held accountable because, well, someone else did something bad too. It undermines trust in our leaders and institutions because it suggests that as long as someone else is doing worse, then nothing needs to change. What a sad state of affairs for the Liberal Party, Madam Speaker. The party that waltzed into government with fine slogans about sunny ways and running the most transparent government in history now hides and cowers behind the excuse that, well, at least the other guys were worse.